Welcome to Audio Gyan with Kedar Nimkar, a podcast that documents insightful conversations with Indian designers, artists, musicians, writers, thinkers and creatives of all types. Catch us on iTunes or visit audiogyan.com for more Gyan sessions. Here's your host Kedar Nimkar.
Today I have Ranganath Krishnamani with us on Audio Gyan. Ranganath is a multidisciplinary designer specializing in illustration, art direction and user experience. He draws inspiration from vintage architecture, street art and machinery. When he is not behind the sketchbook or computer working on pixels, he loves traveling and exploring new trails on his bicycle. Thank you Ranganath for giving us your time. It's a real pleasure to have you on Audio Gyan and welcome to the show.
Pleasure, Kedar. Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me over here.
We'll be discussing some bits about design, your thought process and art in general. So the first thing which I want to ask you is like all of your work which I've seen on various websites on online have a typical texture, a color, tone to it. So is it intentional and how did you narrow down on this particular styling and what could be your say in doing so for other designers as well?
Sure. Good question. I think textures and color specifically for me didn't come naturally. I think textures is one extra level of detail.
Okay.
If I have to get into it, it comes with understanding where to merge contrast.
Okay.
When you work with black and white, when it comes to illustration, what you try and do is to really block out color.
Okay.
Right? It's unlike photography where I can actually merge. Like if I have to give it a gradient, I can have a very strong light on one end. And if it has to merge into the dark, I need something that can actually take that and tone it down and give it that kind of tone that merges it together. So in a way, textures become that to give you that kind of, space to merge something. Or it could also act as something that can give you tactileness. Or, like sometimes when it comes to building digital design, what makes it so digital is it becomes very flat. Irrespective of how much color you use, how much tone you use, it could really become very, very flat. And textures that way add tactileness to it. Add that much needed pop to your eye, because when you're really seeing it, your eye doesn't hold anything.
Okay.
Specifically when it comes to composition, you're trying to, highlight something or downplay something or give it that play of where the eye is trying to figure out what's going on, right? So it gives you that feel of there's so much happening, but at the same time when you look back you get to see the overall picture. So textures,
is it because of the particular things which you have highlighted in a certain way, or is it because of the content itself?
It could be both. It could be something that I could underplay it entirely. But I think textures in a way, when it's used very well, can be very powerful. Just to step back in terms of style and color, and that was something that you asked me, I think if I have to trace back in terms of colors and usage, I would paint. I was very inspired by my own teacher, who was a painter. His name is Nikhil Paul. I graduated out of Chitrakala Parishad in Bangalore, and he was one of my, the idols. As I grew up, I saw him paint, and I saw him paint on Chinese paper, these rice papers, where he would have these beautiful play of people with emotion, and his entire kind of the way he would play this out was very dark, only certain very strong light and shadow, like people standing. It would be a woman standing and looking up, but it's only her face and her hands that would actually highlight. Everything else would be almost merged into the background.
Okay.
It's almost like, it's a play of, like, it's how graphic design works, right? It's a great space of play of positive, negative, right? So that was one of my early influences. If I have to look at my early influences, was that he would really start with a dark background. He would start with he would first draw something and paint it all brown.
Okay.
Or a purple. Then he would start to add layers of color. So it totally reverses your entire idea of how you'd paint.
The canvas itself is dark. Yeah.
Yes. Typically you're taught to learn how to paint is when you actually start to block off this white because it's so intimidating. The white is so intimidating. You'd start to say, okay, how do I add texture? How do I start to block some colors out so I can see form? While this was a very different way that you would it's almost sitting in a dark room and you would try to find that little ray of light, which becomes so much more easy to focus on, as opposed to a white light which you're seeing. Even if you have to stream a black light, dot into it, you won't be able to see it. So I thought it was a very nice way to really conceptualize something that would, change your entire idea of how you would approach something. And his color scheme was very, very natural. Somehow I would use a lot of acrylic colors when in college, when I passed out or while I was in college. I would love the acrylic colors because it was so quick to dry. You had to be really fast with it, but at the same time, it would give you several layers of, if you wanted to work on layers of color, you could go very texture based.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So when you actually feel it, when you keep it closer, you bring it closer to your eyes, you can actually see textures of paint where it's dried up because I haven't really quickly, smudged it or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So that was my early influences, and I still remember that lighting. I would love to do anything to get that kind of lighting where it's just dark and only a little suggestion of a man standing with a balloon. So all my work was very much emulation of his kind of work.
Correct.
And when it came to computer, my first thing was, how do I take this and build it? It was very subconscious in a way. I never thought of it like me having to try the same style. But if I really look back, if I really look back at my previous paintings in college, and I look at this, I see a lot of similarity in the kind of colors, in terms of how I approach it. Only thing, the medium has changed. Medium gives me a lot more space to change, undo, redo. Acrylic was also a very interesting, forgiving medium. You could paint on top.
Correct.
It's just like oil, right? You would paint dark, but you could still paint lighter tones. But I think, those were like the early times where I can clearly look back and see how that translates to what I do. But I think as you grow, you start to eliminate a lot of things. You start to eliminate things that work for you, things that stick with you, things that don't stick with you.
Okay.
So I think it's a gradual progression of how much color is perfect. It's almost like you get down to narrowing to a few colors, maybe 3 or 4 colors, maybe a few textures. Where you start to question, where do you really need textures? Are you just overdoing it because people like your style? Right. So essentially, then you need to start to narrow it down to what makes sense. What are you trying to put out there, and does it really capture all the ideas that you're trying to that you've grown with, to a point where you grow with the next artwork, not go down, right? So you've created one, but if you have to really, like, art was that way very beautiful, that in college I remember we would do this 6 months review, and Nikhil Paul would actually put all my works out there and show me the first work and show me the latest work. Can I have you grown? Right? It's not just painting, but are you thinking? Are you constantly not thinking about the subject, but thinking about your process? Can I see color schemes that you've grown into take shape, or are you just recycling the same kind of thought that you're in a very comfort zone? You want to just build on that same comfort zone and keep building on it, right? So one is style, making that happen, that you start to put yourself in this niche area to think that this is what I would do every time I get a subject. But it's also very interesting to break away certain things and say, can I make space for something new, so that I constantly am growing. I'm not just adding,
Correct.
the same thing over and over again. It becomes a little more repetitive. But at the same time, you're growing as a person in terms of how do I add new things without really breaking away from the foundation you built.
Grow as in the sense, what's the percentage of improving the craft itself as opposed to the thought process?
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting question, and I would think the craft is a huge place where you spend a lot of time. It's almost like waking up and going to play cricket or football, right? You don't question. You don't know if you will ever. The point is in sport, you never think of it as I'm going to represent India or I'm going to play. I'm never going to go in and play in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
The idea is that I enjoy it. I just have fun. I don't care what my final output will be or where I will end up with, but I'm having fun. So I think with the point of the process of you building off is that you're thinking of it from a long term, like from 10 years from now, am I going to be a lot more educated as a person in terms of how I can handle my skill, how do I handle my understanding of light and shadow, how do I handle composition, how do I handle can I have a depth, can I have a handle in terms of the medium, and also understand how do I take this medium and channelize it to the solution or the problem in front of me. One is that I could be very strong in a certain medium, but if I can't understand the problem that I'm trying to solve or the communication that I'm putting out has to also have a certain language that I need to figure out. So that is where you will start to use the skill, but you will start to you will vary the tone based on what your communication is. Whether if, for instance, if you're trying to do this for a web experience, assume, I can't have such I don't have people's attention for that long. I need to make it really crisp and easy and understand that the user on the other side has just that couple of minutes. Do I really go crazy on my colors and make it come alive and make it very abstract, or do I make it crisp and just make it as close to that it's not a battle between art and typography and everything? Can I just when it all comes together, it's a communication.
Correct.
Right. So that is where you would vary, as opposed to if I have to put this as a medium of art in a gallery, I do have the guy who's captively coming into the gallery just because he wants to see my art.
Correct.
And I can have that long conversation. So by having the skill, you need to understand what you will be putting it to use and how can you vary the tone based on what you're trying to do.
Correct.
And who are you serving as an audience. I think that is what you understand with experience, that it is not about skill. Yes, you need to have skill, you need to understand your craft, but take that craft apply it in places which really make sense.
Correct. Interesting. In fact, this naturally blends into my next question, which was in one of your interviews, I believe in Design Fabric or some place, you mentioned design is very time bound. I'll quote the way you that it was written here. Design is very time bound. You have something in your mind, you built it, and it changes very soon. Art, on the other hand, is very memorable. So my question to you on this is, as per my understanding, I think design is something when you are trying to solve a problem, while art is more like having an expression. So how do you see these two things? How do you compare these? Do you even compare? And what is the thought process behind it?
Sure. So if I have to, answer this, growing up in school, I did art as my graduation. My BFA and masters was art, but I hung out with a lot of designers. So all my friends were from graphic design.
Okay.
So we would have these hard conversations about, what is art, what is design, how do we really. In my mind, I couldn't really differentiate those two. It's like you're trying to communicate something. at one point you're saying, I want this to be for me. I become the end user. I am the client. I tell what the rules are, as opposed to design, which is driven by circumstances, rules, by someone else who sets this for me.
Correct.
So that's the only difference.
The constraints are given to you.
The constraints are given to me. At the same time, for art as well, I have to have my own constraints. I have to build a box within which I see these constraints.
Okay.
For instance, art, most people think that, it's just self-expression. But self-expression also requires channeling your ideas into what do I want to explain. If the world is so open, what do I pick up as constraint? What do I have to choose as what really, what ideas are thousands. I have to choose one of the ideas that really sticks with it. I need to choose a certain medium that will, again, constrain, right? Within that medium, I can only do so much. So essentially, you setting a rule versus someone else setting a rule. I think at the end of the day, the current times that we are in, I clearly see that the art and design are worlds that are merging together.
Okay.
I see that very clearly, right? Like installation art taking stage, where you could experience, what it could be to walk into the future, right? More and more, AI and so many other things are leading you into the future of what you could be. Again, it's not something that is real, but it's a
possibility.
It's someone's interpretation of what that is. So if it is someone else's interpretation, that it can be art, right? It is not real. It is my interpretation, but you can experience it, right? That's great. Which means that you've blended a lot of these kind of silos of art and design and so many other things into one single space. More and more, specifically going back to that quote that you just mentioned, why I think design is time bound is that the appetite for people and how they perceive design is changing very rapidly. Just look at cars. In few years, you could have owned a previous model of any car. In 2 years, it's changed your design sensibilities so much that when you look at it, you know it is an old version or the new version. The kids know it. You really
although the utility remains the same.
Utility remains the same. It's just that people understand, they can perceive very quickly.
Beautiful.
Very, very quickly. It need not look bulky. It could look really slick. For things change in 6 months in product design.
Correct.
In things in front of you can change real quickly, and you will realize that, oh my God, my sensibility 6 months was that was beautiful, and I can't believe that I've moved from there to something else, and I can actually look back and say that seems really old. Right?
Beautiful.
So in that sense, design you are growing, which means that as a person, your sensibilities are growing. You are being influenced by people around, and things that are happening which you don't have control over is been influencing you in without you knowing, and you realize that at some point you realize, oh my God, this looks old. Or the design language seems old. Design language, not that itself, right? So it's so funny, right? But in art, when you look back, the more some of these don't have a certain age built into it.
Correct.
Some of them are memorable, right? Look at the paintings that within the art movement in India itself. Some of them are absolutely memorable, right? They change you. They're more about capturing the humanity in that sense, right? So design that way is utilitarian, right? I am trying to make certain thing look impressive, approachable, beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, so that it's almost my extension of my personality. While art, on the other hand, is a lot more at a level where you're trying to please the soul.
Correct. It's
right?
more of an introspection.
It's more of an introspection of what it makes you feel.
Correct.
How do I, it might not speak to me when I stand. Most times you're blank, but it's just that the size of it when you're consumed in front of it, you realize that the world is so much more beautiful in front of you.
Yeah.
And people have interpretation, and they have a certain way that they can explain where they become the clients. It's always hard when you have to give yourself a requirement and you say that I will do it because I will have this and I can't take more than, like, have you tried this ever?
Yeah.
Like maybe if you're on a trip, you can say, I won't spend more than 50 rupees a day, right? That's a constraint that you build.
Yeah.
But what happens within the constraint is that you start to learn a lot more about yourself.
Correct.
Right? Where it really helps you, where it doesn't, you feel irritated.
Yeah.
Just like in the same as in art as well, right? So when you give yourself constraints, you start to realize that, it's not about you pleasing something. It's like you're not trying to sell something. You're not trying to beautify something, right? Then what are you trying to do with the skill and the knowledge that you have, which would help other people understand and make them feel better?
Yeah, it has to be. What you're making, like what you're saying, is making a lot of sense. But I think it needs a deeper understanding, or at least contemplation on what you're saying, and then just digesting it.
Yeah,
I got
that is because as designers and artists, all of us have a very strong opinion about the world that we have. Right? We are not just serving people who need design.
Correct.
We also are people who can have a very strong opinion, viewpoint about the world. And this, in a way, for me, becomes a great way to understand and explain your part of what you see, how you see the world in front of you.
Correct.
What lens do you see in your world in front of you? Right? That is important because in design, there are multiple people who might be able to help you build it, basically. But like, I'm just trying to do comparison.
Nothing which is great.
Right? But here, it's your own making, your own opinion, your own idea, your own lens of what you see the world with. And if those two can merge, that's great, right? You have a great. That's where you can jump between these two worlds. Where, like the way I look at it is during my day, I'm strong. I'm really happy serving. Design requirement set by others.
Correct.
But there are times where I, in a week, at the end of the week, I don't really pick up any other work. It's just my problem. I have to it's personal projects that I want to build off. That makes my perception better of the world. How do I, how do I see the world around me?
Correct.
What are things that would be that would be worth if I have to give birth to, that people would love to have in front of them.
Correct.
Right? So I think it's having those two specific worlds of and really pushing hard on both, and not letting one take.
I sense obviously I can sense a longer debate on this, because not a debate but a discussion, because there are certain things which are actually design, but they are like now a form of art. But it can go on and on.
But the good part, as I said, is both worlds are merging. Right now, people aesthetically understand sensibilities of design, and they want higher sense of it. So the great part as a designer is that you have two streams to pull this off from, and it's your choice to merge this or play it with your strength. Basically.
The next one which I want to ask you is slightly technical, because people who are in the online world and also in the graphics or design space, it might resonate with them more. So personally, like, I find Dribble or Behance or these kind of places to be more of, actually this now connects to what you said, because I find this to be slightly aesthetically driven, good dribble shots and I would call it more of a art thing
Absolutely.
than design, because design you need context, you need constraints, you need to know what they are doing.
Right.
And so what are your thoughts on that? I mean, simply putting out people putting out work there, does it need to change? How can it evolve?
So I would say both platforms like Behance and Dribbble have really shaped design sensibilities over the last few years. I can see it myself. I see this as a great medium to be a part of, to question your own thoughts sometimes, to also contribute. Also pushes me to keep contributing to places, so that it's something that you have an opportunity to be a part of. But having said that, both Dribbble and Behance serve two different kind of problems, right? Like Behance is a great community where you show your final portfolio. Like the hardest part that we have, that designers faced before, was that we would send off a PDF or some kind of a PPT which would really not capture everything.
Not justified.
People like good ideas have to be shown to the world, and that is all living in PDFs and these big massive folders where we would open it and show it to only a bunch of few who understand it or don't understand it. So I think,
or maybe job oriented.
Yeah. So as a designer, the only way for you to get to know, or people know you or know your work more than knowing you, is when they ask you, okay, show me your portfolio. Right now, with these kind of mediums and communities, people come to you because they see you and they're like, wow, I can use your talent to something I'm trying to build. So that way the platform has really changed how designers were looked at previously, or artists were looked at previously, where it would always be a pull, where do I know someone in my community who I can go and approach, who can help me aesthetically make up my interior, or it could be a web experience or anything that I want to build, as opposed to on my fingertips today. If I have to look at someone, these are communities I would look in and say, who are the guys who are able to do the best job for me. So that way it's a great space to come in and understand and make it open for most people, which wasn't accessible, and vice versa, right? But
because of that, there's a lot more noise also which has come in, right?
Absolutely. So I think that's true, because I was coming to a point where Dribbble, as you say, the idea of how Dribbble evolved was to really put the idea was to show what you're working currently and put it out there to get feedback, right? So it wasn't something which was meant to be where you actually show a finished product. So the idea of how the Dribbble as such was found was that I could put something out there which I'm thinking of. I could be thinking aloud. It need not have all context, but I want to get quick feedback, so that I can understand what people are trying to do. I can internalize some of the feedback that is coming in, make changes to it, and either post it or use that to understand my own sensibilities. So in that sense, it is serving the right thing. But yes, there is a lot of noise, because some of them are the noise is because it's a diverse kind of audience, right? There are guys who are influencers, there are guys who are students, right? Students typically, when people who are coming in, would always look for what are things that I drift to, what are styles that I drift to, which is not at all a bad idea. When I grew up, I had to emulate or try and see how others would do, so I would recreate some of these. That is just for my understanding.
Correct.
Right? So that's how you learn. But I think that is where the noise that you see, that there is a lot of it that looks similar, but it's the way the community is going to be built, because you will see a lot of people there will be some of them who are influencers who will create these unique ideas, unique things that will stand out. Then there is a lot of guys who are learning from it, and they pick up elements are influenced by those elements and reuse them, that becomes, that could end up as noise. But the good part is, for them it's a great, whoever's doing it,
Correct.
is a great learning process of trying to understand how to handle the medium. But at some point they become their own, they bring in their own styles. But you are going through this this phase of me having to try and be influenced to a place where I am the guy who's influencing. Right? So it's like it's a life. It's a journey that you have to make. So that's what I see why the thing is. But and the times that we are, as you rightly said, design and art is something that is very popular now, right? It's not a niche field anymore. So there's so many more aspirational people who are aspiring to come in, and the only way for them to really be recognized are these mediums. And I think it's almost like, if you're not in any of these, are you really living under a rock in that sense? So it's also pressure too. But it's all about how you look at life and say, what do I want to do?
But I think that sensibility grows as you grow older also, because when you are like really young, you want to experiment a lot, and that's where some of the truth also comes in, but there is a lot of influence also. So there's a very thin balance which we got to maintain.
Absolutely.
Ranganath, I would like to just slightly change track here and know your a bit of like, how did you learn? So this was mainly to ask you again, in one of your interviews you spoke about how government institutes are able to hone the skills you have. Like can you tell us something more about it? I mean, if openly we have to compare private institutes or government institutes, and as we are speaking right now that design is coming into mainstream, a lot of people are getting sensitive towards design. So what role or how a government school teaching has influenced you, and what are the takeaways which you had which would be missing probably in the private sector?
Right. So I don't know if that was miscommunicated, but my thought was it wasn't private versus government.
No, I am asking this. It wasn't there.
So so I think if I have to look at the difference in style, I think the government schools are generic in a way, right? When we were passing out, we were taught the skill, or it is more about you having to understand your potential, so you're putting in effort to push yourself to learn, right?
As in to develop the skill.
Right?
Okay.
So what I realized from my own education, when art education, when we were passing out, is that we were taught how to draw something in front of us, or to take your idea of what was just abstract to something that you could paint in front of you, or to give it birth. But you weren't shown how to sell yourself, how to face the world around you, right? So when you come out, you realize that you have the skill, but who needs this? Who are the right set of people I need to speak to? When they speak to me, how do I ask the right questions? How do I need to face and how do they know that I am the right kind of person? Because they are also as grey as me, right? So that's what was lacking. That that you're not given the 360 degree part of what you have to do. You are given the knowledge what you need. That is specifically because you need it, and you sometimes run for it, and you start doing all the hard work. It's the art schools were very liberal that way, right? So it wasn't like you have to sit down and be in front of in the class for like 6 to 8 hours. More of our class was outside, right? So you had to go out, sketch, do a lot of work, come back, take those research of yours, whatever drawings you made, then make that into final drawings, whatever that you have to. Whether it's sculptor, whether you're a printmaker, everything looks the same. I mean, the process is the same. But when you come out, you have this great portfolio. That's what you think. I have a great portfolio, but who needs this? How do I use the skill that I have to serve a need that I see in the world.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Right? So that was the missing piece that we had to learn on the job. So you try, like initially I tried working for an agency.
I think, you well put it, because if I have to articulate this, it would be more of how to position yourself in the real world also.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
So now if you really look at it, the colleges that are training the new students, they're able to give them that 360-degree part of what I see is
Correct.
that they understand how to, like, most people come with a clear mindset, I want to do this. Like we have interns at our own office studio who come in and they're like very clear that I want to do this very clearly. If I have to look back, we were, absolutely in that sense, we just wanted an opportunity. I don't think we ever asked for,
we never chose anything.
We said, give me an opportunity, I don't know what, I will do something about it.
Correct.
Right? So in that sense, the 360-degree learning is I think it's evolved. Because the 360-degree takes up so much space, you could have people who are very generic, that they have a great way to understand what they want to do, but sometimes it also means that because the skill levels takes up so much more time of yours.
Correct.
You don't have that much time to do justice to both these worlds, where I have to understand how to need to sell, at the same time really
the
good at...
The skill also takes a backseat sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. So
in fact, I remember, which is soon going to go live, I did a interview with Vaibhav Kumaresh, who is an animator in Bombay. He worked on the Simpu character.
Right.
And he said, now this is the big difference between, which we can see in today's time, that there isn't education happening, there's training happening. Like training is more towards, like you said, a new student comes and says, this is what I want to do, because
absolutely
that is what I have been trained for, and this is what I want to do now.
Correct.
So it's a big difference. I'm connecting the dots here, and I can see a pattern emerging.
Right. So, absolutely, you're bang on. That education has become so easy. Like people are educated, so you come and say, I want to, I know exactly what I want to do, as opposed to, oh, you know what, I look at this as a clean canvas. Where do I start?
Let me explore types. Cool. So this is like my last question. You have, like, to a certain extent, brought illustrations and graphics, in fact icons, to a respectable level in at least the Indian online space. People have changed their general perception about stock icons and things like that. So where do you think the future of this is? How do you see illustrations evolving in the coming years? And again, which briefly you spoke about, do people still need the skilled hand, or is it the undo and the software is going to help?
Great question. So the way I look at it is that you still need the human mind to think very creatively. There could be assistance with people from outside to make it precise, to make it really come together very well. But you still need a human brain to conceptualize, to conjure things that are never put together in a certain way. What illustrations do is that they take you to a world, they can tell you a story, they can let you imagine the unimagined, basically. Or, what could take you thousands of words, I could say it in a picture, in one single image. Right? So that's the strong part of what it would still remain the same. I would still question, if it would really go away from what it serves, because it serves, humanity, right? It's all about how can I see, people embrace technology and move to this new world that we are trying to go to. I think there will be this constant tension of technology and what
the thought,
and the thought. And I think the thought would still be something that that would dominate at any given point, because it requires us, the experience, the lives that we have, whatever we bring to the table is based on several influences and years of experience and several things that you've gone through to help you put some of these things together that is never possible otherwise.
Correct.
So I think in that sense, we would still be relevant. I think the stories that we say could be very different. It would be more about the lifestyles that that generation or the times that the changing times would be. We would be talking about that, but it'd still be about people, about how you take whatever you're seeing, which is you've given birth to, and how are you using it. How is that changed your life, and how has it become better? How are your lives become better based on the technology that we're using? So I think that's the story at the end of the day, right? It's whatever you can go, but it's still about those small little incidents that you bring back and you talk about it.
Correct.
I think that's what we would still serve as illustrators.
Beautiful. I think this is a good note to end this. I know there are a lot of things to be discussed, and maybe we can do another audio GAN session.
Absolutely.
So thank you once again for giving us your time, and it was pleasure talking to you.
Absolute pleasure, Kedar, and it was wonderful. Lovely. Thank you so much for having me over here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's it.
And that's it from today's GAN session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more GAN on audiogan.com. Till then, bye.